Welcome to Rocket Ship, the home of epic React Native content. I'm Simon Grimm, creator of Galaxies.dev, and today is actually episode 76. I didn't expect this, but we might actually get to 100 episodes in this podcast, so that makes me really happy. Anyway, I hope you're having a great week. It's summertime. I thought, well, we have like 3 or 4 links, but then I did an hour of research and now I have like 20 tabs open of information on new React Native packages, general news, things that might come in the future. I have some updates on things I'm working on that I want to later share, as well as some trending topics that we want to discuss. So let's dive straight into the first section, our React Native release radar. This is, by the way, not only about releases, this is also like everything that's happening around React Native. I really try to combine every source that I can find about articles, about releases and new packages into this podcast, so you get an overview about what's going on without doing like constant social listening and hanging around on X the whole time. So, getting started, Vadim, creator of Not Just Dev, good friend, had a nice article on the Expo blog that I wanted to highlight. So I knew that Vadim was working more on some personal mobile apps this year, just like I wanted to do. Last week I told you I'm dropping that idea, and I actually feel quite good with that for the moment. But he's into this, and he's doing it with 10 hours per week on the side. I barely work 10 hours in general. It's hard for me. No, I work a bit more than 10 hours. But anyway. In this article, he shares some pretty cool things, especially how to get started. And this is also how I try to approach apps before and how I will definitely do it in the future. Because this starts with an App Store optimization driven development. You kind of do some keyword research before. He's using the same tool like I did. He's using Astro, great and simple tool to figure out different keywords and see how often are they searched for, how popular are they, what's the competition. And then he's also sharing his different steps. So build just one feature apps, focus on one specific thing, use AI, of course, put a system behind these things, because if you want to release like 10 apps, you better have like a default onboarding or a default app template, paywalls and whatnot. So go to this article, it's on the Expo blog, as well as, of course, in the show notes as all the other things. Speaking of app templates, Ignite got a new version. Ignite version 11 Bison is here. I hope that's how you pronounce Bison. The name is the best thing about... No, of course not, Jamin. It's not the best thing. But the name is pretty cool. You can find the story behind this in the release post. If you don't know Ignite, we've talked about this before with the folks from Infinite Red. It's the battle-tested boilerplate that Infinite Red has been... maintaining for, since 2016, for 9 years, really? That's crazy. There are some pretty cool updates to it. Bye-bye legacy architecture, Expo SDK 53 included, bring your own state management, which by the way gave that release its name. So pretty cool updates for everyone using Ignite, or if you haven't heard it before, go check it out now. Then we got more news from the Expo team. So I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I told you that Expo hired 2 new developers. One was Nishan and the other one was Hirbod. And they're both already working pretty productive. Last week, we talked about some, I think it was the background image feature from Nishan that he made a PR for React Native. So bringing background position, background repeat, background image to React Native. This week, he shared an example of using different SwiftUI supported filters like blur or grayscale that you can just use with your styling in your React Native application. I love it. I love it when it becomes like when these things become available so easy in your application. You just have to do style, filter, and then blur 10 pixel or something. This is how I want to write my React Native app. This is how it should be. And it's great to see that it's constantly getting better. It's not that React Native is just like going from 80 to 81 to 82. No, they're actually improving really on some substantially cool things that make your developer life a lot easier. It's not just numbers, although I still hope we get to React Native 1 at some point. Anyway, besides that, and by the way, this hasn't landed in React Native, this is just going to be a PR. Hirbod's sneak peek is about Modals. He's apparently working our mission, beautiful iPad, iPhone-like modal sheets with great defaults and lots of optional config for web. I love it because the modals for web always felt like I don't know. I don't know. They just didn't feel right. They didn't sit with me. But I think this is good. And it's becoming a good piece for web. They will also add some anchoring, history support, and that stuff, which can be challenging with modals, especially on the web. So looking forward what they're gonna drop. Of course, this will ship inside Expo router and supports native stack screen props as much as possible. Then to a big release, Jacek released Unistyles 3.0. This has been in the making quite long, actually longer than I expected. I think he had a very long beta phase, but he's probably working on this alone, or maybe he's getting some PRs, I don't know. But that's great news, because Unistyles is really a great choice for your project. If you say, I will use just the built-in style sheet, then just go with Unistyles, because Unistyles is pretty much like Style Sheet, but just with so much more functionality, and there's pretty much no drawback in terms of performance. With the new version of Unistyles, Jacek is also using Nitro Modules from MacroSavvy. We talked about this before, and we might come back to this later again. But overall, I will definitely have to dive into this, maybe do a video, or maybe we can bring Jacek back on to talk about Unistyles in the future again, because this is, I think I'm actually also a sponsor of Unistyles on GitHub, because when I first saw this project, I really loved it, and I've been a sponsor since then. So go check it out if you want to see how to go from Unistyles 2 to 3. He's also a blog post. And how many stars does it have? It has 2.2k stars on GitHub. I think this tells a good story, because some packages, you know, some packages come up and then everyone's excited, and then they stay around like 250 stars because just your friends and your family is giving you a star. But over 2,000 stars means people use this, people like this, and the community has adopted this. Go check it out if you want to do a little side project, follow Vadim's steps, and use Unistyles to move further. Although I'm also a big fan of native Wind, but I don't know. There's no best solution. Anyway, continuing with more new stuff, Shimon Schmal shared that he's creating Redux DevTools back in React Native DevTools. Pretty cool. He's created like a custom panel. You can inspect your Redux stuff. Only problem is I'm not working with Redux. I'm more like a Zustand or Yotai guy at this point. But if you're into Redux, expect something like this very soon. It's pretty cool to see it in the React Native DevTools. Then CallStack, all the agencies are today. We got CallStack, we got Infinite Red, and we will also talk software mention. This is a package from CallStack that I've seen before, but I just wanted to mention it here because it popped up in my feed again. It's called React Native Legal. And this one automatically generates license acknowledgements for your React Native app and actually any JavaScript project. That's pretty cool, because if you're an enterprise company, if you're building an app and you forgot about this, you can actually get a pretty high fine, and you don't really want that, I guess. And with this package, I assume it just picks up all the packages, retrieves their license, and includes this in a nice view. You can just open this with a pop-up or something in your application. So if you're working on a serious application, you might want to use React Native Legal. By the way, the other day I noticed that their GitHub organization and all their packages are now under CallStack Incubator. Shimon also had some packages here. They're doing some pretty cool stuff. The native bottom tabs navigator is also now, I think, under CallStack Incubator. I should definitely follow that. I will follow this now. Okay, so go check this out. CallStack doing some pretty cool things lately. Then, coming back to Infinite Red, Joshua Joes, who is the staff software engineer at Infinite Red, and he previously shared an iOS QA agent coming to Cursor. Now he's sharing a little update on this tool that it can actually see what's going on in your iOS simulator for the AI. That's pretty cool because, again, just like the style props that we talked about before, this is making developer lives easier. AI is here to stay. I'm using it with Cursor every day. You're using it with Cloud Code or your VS Code or whatnot. And this integration with the iOS simulator is pretty cool. I don't know, maybe there's an opportunity for like a testing framework with MCP and simulators, something like that. But this is pretty cool to see. So version 1.4 of the UIView tool now has this new feature to capture and compress screenshots of the iOS simulator view. I haven't used this completely in reality. I'm sorry, I definitely need to check this out, but there are just too many great things in the React Native ecosystem right now. Then we have something that I also found because it popped up related to Jamin in my feed, and that's from Christoph. He has a package called Stack. I love that it's having like the most easiest name, but it's under his NKZW tech organization. Oh, he's from Japan. That's interesting. He might know Brad, maybe. It's a zero dependency type safe stack component for streamlining flexbox usage in React and React Native. What does it mean? Well, if you style your React Native views or in your React app, you usually use like all these display flex direction, flex wrap, justify content, align items, and do this for every component and view, and it gets really boring and messy. With this stack component, you get a bunch of these things set by default, and you can easily add something like stack and then vertical gap. Now, hear me out. If you heard podcasts from me before, I usually dislike this. Whenever there was like a UI component library, whatever it was, let's call it native base or something like that in the future, in the past, I was never really a big fan of this because it messes up your code. It goes away from the default of view and styles and whatnot. But these things are so repetitive in your React Native application and also in your React application that this is actually a pretty cool thing to use because it's just for this stack use case. You're not doing all the components in your application with the stack component. You're just using it for the stacks, and then you have these align start, align center. It just makes your life a lot easier. Now, this is actually not the news about the package itself. The news is that Christoph added a new S-stack to convert any component to a stack. So you can now create your own component, wrap it with S-stack around it, and it becomes a stack by default. So you could have the Expo router link component, wrap it with S-stack somewhere, and then use it in your app, and you just always use center, gap, align, whatever with it. I will definitely put this on my watch list, and I should give this repository a star if I haven't done it, so do it as well. I think this is a pretty cool component. Now, to some more things that might happen in the future, Kashpa, who was also on the podcast before, shared some pretty cool updates because React Native Reanimated is going to version 4, I hope pretty soon. I think it's in beta right now. And with version 4, there will be finally CSS transitions and animations included. You can already use them, but of course, it's a beta version. And he once again shared a little example of this like button with a border and hover or whatnot. And it's just so cool to see that stuff. Just like the background image, just like the filter, this now working easily inside React Native feels good. Now, I'm not a CSS wizard. I definitely need to brush up on my CSS skills, and as well, the syntax is a bit different probably than what you know from the web if you're a web CSS wizard, but you will be able to transition to this really, really fast. He shares a little code snippet, so I'm super excited about about Reanimated 4 and the CSS animations. We'll definitely talk more about this once it's released. We already had many news, but there's more. There's also something from Software Mention called React Native Reg, a local and offline retrieval augmented generation. Now, I know a bit about AI and stuff and LLMs, but what a reg is actually beyond me. I can only quote that this is a technique that improves the quality of an LLM's responses by providing it with relevant information from a local knowledge base. I think that gives a good picture, and it's pretty cool to see more packages like this come out. React Native Reg makes it easy to use this and improve your responses. There's some code about vectors and embeddings. Yeah, I know that stuff. I don't know how it works in my application, but I think it's going to be pretty beneficial for the people who want to use it. And finally, there's one more thing that I want to tell you about, and that's The Shipaton from RevenueCat is back. I'm a big fan of RevenueCat as I use them in pretty much all of my own applications. And the Shipaton is like an annual event. It's running from August 1 to September 30th. And you're invited to ship a brand new app to iOS, Android, Mac App Store between this time. There are various categories in which you can win an award. I was thinking about participating, but I don't have an idea and I also don't have time right now. But you should definitely check this out. If you're like an indie hacker or just curious, you have an idea for a new project, maybe this gives you the motivation bump. Combine this probably with Vadim's 10 steps or tips to build your application, and you could grab some nice prizes here in the RevenueCat Shipaton. Evan Bacon is also on the judges team, so if you build a great React Native application, your chances are probably good. But honestly, there are different categories like vibe coding, build in public, and others. So go check out the launch post, and maybe you're gonna ship and win some nice prizes in this competition. After all these news, some quick build-in public updates about myself and my projects. This week I finally released the Amazon clone that I've built. The video on YouTube is actually 6.5 hours long, and we're building a really, this is probably one of my most favorite clones I've done so far because it involves a lot of small but also big things. There are things like reanimated animations for a bottom tabs component with like a little indicator at the top. We have 3D views included. We have authentication, passkeys, as well as integration with a Node.js API. And we also have things like the integration of AI voice agent with Vadim. So this whole application, and by the way, we also have Stripe payments and checkout in the end. So there's really a lot in this. You don't have to go through everything, but give it a thumbs up or share it. Maybe someone else might find it helpful, or you might just find one of the chapters interesting. There are chapters everywhere, and you can also get the code from GitHub. So would mean a lot to me if you could give it a thumbs up and share this, because it actually took me quite some weeks to develop this. By the way, beyond this, there will be some essentials coming over the next week about authentication and combining tabs and drawer layout. And I also asked on X the other day, what was your biggest challenge after coming from React Web to React Native? And interesting enough, yeah, debugging is still challenging for 30% of the people, but the most challenging thing are native features. Things like opening the native platforms, how you work with native modules. So I think we should definitely talk more about this after the summer vacation time, because this is actually the last episode, at least for 1 or 2 weeks. I'll be on Majorca next week for about 10 days, enjoying the hot sun and the pool. And I won't be releasing an episode next week, simply because this is currently not a pre-recorded show for 4 weeks in advance. I do this every week to keep you up with the latest news and the trends. So I can't create an episode for next week. It just wouldn't really work. So there will be no episode next week, and most likely the other week, because we will be 10 days there. And when we get back, I don't know if I have like all the news ready already. So maybe 2 weeks of no podcast. I'm sad about this, but honestly, this is one of the things I'm kind of like, I would love to live more in seasons, you know, like in the past when people lived in season. In the summer, you did like the summer stuff, and in the winter, you're like indoors and eat the food and stay indoors maybe. And I would like to apply this concept to more of my content. I would like to have like a podcast season, just like a Netflix season, but on Netflix, it kind of works. You drop the 8 episodes and you come back in 2 years with a new season. The problem is that seasonality does not really play well with the YouTube algorithm, with a podcast algorithm. You constantly have to feed that machine. If I don't release anything for like 2 months, the next episode I will release, nobody's going to see it. The algorithm is just not showing it to anyone. And the same is true for other platforms as well. So you constantly have to feed that, and that's kind of annoying, because I would really love to create a season for you, maybe focus on a specific topic and then call it a day and then move on and like do research for a month and figure out something else. And the same for videos. I would just like to put out a bunch of great videos and then stop doing videos for 2 or 3 months. Anyway, that's creator complaint, but anyway, I will be off next week and the week after, and then I will be back. But let's wrap up the episode with some trending topics from X. What are people talking about this week? Well, there are a couple of topics that I extracted from X that I think are currently trending. One of them is Nitro Modules. So last week and this week, I told you about a bunch of packages. Macrosavi created a new package called, was it called Nitro Image? But it was actually an image component that uses Nitro Modules under the hood. Mark also asked, I want to rewrite Vision Camera to use Nitro Modules. Last week, there was also a beta update of React Native Camera or video that is now using Nitro Modules. And Unistyles version 3 is also using Nitro Modules under the hood. So I think Nitro Modules is really trending currently. It was also featured in This Week in React in Seb's newsletter. And it just shows that more and more library authors are adopting Nitro Modules. Now, I'm not super deep into Nitro Modules. I'm not a library maintainer. I haven't done this before. I don't want to do it. But I think it's a great tool for these people. I said it before, if you just have an easy application, just go with Expo modules. That will usually give you the most value. But if you want the best performance, if you want access to native elements and share these native objects directly with your React Native applications, then Nitro Modules is probably the way to go. It's currently trending, and I think it will stay there for the future. Then we have to talk about some criticism. So Evan Bacon recently had another example at the React Summit. I think it was in the Netherlands, where he shared some Expo examples. Following that, there was an article that I found from someone called Matt, Script Junkie, where he wasn't happy with what Evan said. He breaks down a lot of things that he thinks are pretty bad about React in general, and then he's also targeting directly what Evan said, that the Burger King application on the web takes really long, it's using Expo Web and it sucks, and everything's slow with React, and he has many comments about it. Now, I don't know who's right or wrong here exactly. I know that Evan, of course, we have an image of a spider. I'm sorry if you hated that on YouTube. I know that Evan can be a bit polarizing, and of course, he's not saying anything bad about Expo Router or React Native Web on stage, and he might show something slightly better than it is in reality. I don't know, could be the case. On the other hand, this teardown is certainly from someone who's really raged up about the general state of React. So he's maybe going a bit over target as well. That just means, we always have to consider what people say on social media and how they present stuff in conferences, how in general the React community is right now. I know that in the past there were some issues as well. Just always make your conscious choices. Be informed about the technologies. Nobody's forcing you to use React. You can also use something else. If Expo Web is not working for your app, or then you should, of course, stop it. But I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. It's not that everything here is bad or good. So it's just a nice reminder that we might live in a bubble sometimes of Expo, React Native. I, of course, as well show things in the best possible light as well, because I think that React Native is great. But there are also some flaws to it, and I probably don't talk about them very often, simply because it's like it's actually different to the media. The media is always showing you the bad stuff, the horrible things happening in the world, and that gets attention. I'm more of like the opposite. I show you all the good things that happen in React Native. Maybe I would get more clicks if I would show you the bad things like the media, I've never thought about that. I will have to think about this on the vacation, but it's a reminder that not everyone sees the things as positive as we as creators do it. Finally, there's one more thing that Evan shared recently, and I totally forgot about this because it started with Fernando saying something like, what if you could just have class name flex1 in React Native and it worked on native? And then Evan said, what's stopping you from using this with Expo? Because you got DOM components and you got React strict DOM. And then I remembered, some time ago I made a video about this React strict DOM from Meta, where you could just use html.main, html.p, html.div, and that would render actually to native views in React Native. I totally forgot about this. I don't know where the state of this is currently. I would love to see this come to reality at some point. I will definitely investigate more and see if this is ready. It definitely works with Expo. So Evan says there's an example. You can use create expo-e with HTML and you would get this. So I don't know. It's just one of those things that keeps evolving. Maybe at some point we're going to be able to just use HTML with React Native. Maybe we're going to use blur filter, background image one day. Maybe we can use CSS animations very soon. Again, I think it's getting better all the time, but of course, React Native is not the best thing on earth. Maybe at some point in 2 or 3 years, something else comes around that's a lot better, or the AI robots take our job anyway. I don't know, but I know that I will enjoy the sun next week, and I hope you will come back to the podcast when I'm back. So enjoy the summertime. Keep in mind to take some time off or invest it in your side projects, because that is also always a good investment of your time as it brings joy. Just don't stress out about this and relax. I'll be back very soon. Until then, happy coding, Simon. Thanks for joining today's episode. My goal is to share interesting stories and insights into the world of React Native development. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe to the show on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. And on Spotify and Apple, you can leave up to a 5-star review. Because podcasts, and especially niche podcasts like this, are hard to find, subscribing and leaving a review does help me a lot. On top of that, check out my React Native courses on galaxies.dev that cover a variety of topics from getting started to building and publishing your mobile app. Finally, you can share today's episode with a friend or colleague who would enjoy the topic of the show. If you have any questions or ideas for future episodes, find me on X or leave a comment on YouTube. And last but not least, thank you for listening and happy coding, Simon.